Some destinies do not begin with a choice. They begin with a heartbeat that was never meant to awaken. No one in Blackridge remembered the old stories anymore. They had become bedtime tales whispered by grandparents whose voices shook with age, warnings about wolves that walked like humans beneath the moon. Evelyn Hart had laughed at those stories as a little girl. She had grown up believing monsters belonged only in books, and that ordinary people lived ordinary lives. She never imagined the greatest lie she had ever believed was the one she told herself every morning, that she was ordinary. The rain began just before sunset. A cold autumn wind swept through the narrow streets as Evelyn hurried home from the bookstore where she worked. Damp strands of chestnut hair clung to her pale cheeks while the scent of wet earth filled the air. She hugged her coat tighter and lowered her head against the growing storm, unaware that every shadow around her had suddenly become unnaturally still. It started as a faint ringing inside her ears. Then came another sound, a heartbeat, not her own, slow, powerful, ancient. She stopped walking. The sound echoed somewhere deep inside her chest, as though another heart had awakened beneath her ribs after years of silence. Pain exploded through her body. She stumbled against a stone wall, struggling to breathe as heat spread through every muscle. Her fingertips trembled violently. Every nerve seemed to ignite at once. The city noises faded until all she could hear was the distant rush of rivers, the flutter of wings somewhere overhead, and footsteps belonging to strangers half a block away. She should not have been able to hear any of that. Evelyn. Someone called her name. She turned instinctively. The stranger stood nearly 50 yards away, yet she could see every detail. The tiny scar beneath his left eye, the silver button hanging loose from his coat, the nervous twitch in his fingers. Her vision had become impossibly sharp. Fear settled heavily in her stomach. She blinked. The world smelled different now. Rain carried thousands of scents she had never noticed before. Fresh pine from distant hills, smoke drifting from chimneys. Across town, warm bread cooling inside a bakery several streets away. Even the emotions of nearby people seemed to have their own invisible fragrance. Her pulse quickened. What is happening to me? The whisper disappeared into the storm. Another wave of pain bent her forward. Bones shifted beneath her skin. Not enough to break. Only enough to remind her they could. A blinding flash of crimson lightning split the evening sky. Everyone else screamed because of the thunder. Evelyn screamed because, for one impossible second, she saw something standing on the rooftop across the street. A wolf, larger than any creature she had ever imagined. Its silver eyes locked onto hers without blinking. Then it vanished. She stumbled backward into the empty alley, desperate to convince herself she was hallucinating. But the heartbeat returned. Closer this time. Waiting. Watching. Something ancient stirred inside her chest in answer. As though it recognized that invisible presence. As though it had been asleep her entire life. Then the moon emerged from behind the storm clouds. Its pale light touched Evelyn's skin. The pain stopped. Silence fell. She looked down at her trembling hands. Across the back of her wrist, a faint silver mark shimmered beneath the rain before fading almost completely, leaving only the memory that it had ever existed. She never noticed the cloaked figure standing atop the cathedral tower overlooking the city. He had watched the awakening from beginning to end without moving once. His silver eyes reflected the moonlight while the wind pulled gently at his dark cloak. So, he murmured, his calm voice carrying through the night. The last bloodline has finally awakened. Far below, Evelyn disappeared into the rain, unaware that from this moment forward she was no longer being hunted by chance. She had become the center of a destiny powerful enough to draw princes, hunters, and kings toward her beneath the same moon. Sometimes the people who save your life are the very ones you should fear the most. The cruelest trick destiny ever plays is making your heart trust them before your mind learns who they truly are. Evelyn Hart barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the enormous silver-eyed wolf standing upon the rooftop, watching her without hostility, yet without mercy. It had looked less like a beast and more like a king waiting for something inevitable to happen. Morning sunlight spilled through her apartment window, but it brought no comfort. The city sounded unbearably loud. She could hear water rushing through pipes inside neighboring buildings. She heard a couple arguing 2 floors below. She heard a child laughing somewhere across the street. followed by the distant rumble of a train miles away. Her senses refused to quiet. She pressed her palms against her ears. It changed nothing. The sounds came from inside her now. By noon, she could no longer endure the crowded streets. Every passing stranger carried a different scent that crashed against her senses like ocean waves. Fear smelled bitter. Joy carried warmth like fresh honey. Anger burned sharp as smoke. None of it made sense. She left the city without thinking, following an old hiking trail leading toward Ravenwood Forest. The deeper she walked beneath the towering pines, the quieter the world became. Only birds, wind, leaves. For the first time since the previous night, she could breathe. Until she realized she was no longer alone. Branches snapped somewhere behind her. Not loudly. Carefully. Someone was matching her pace. Her heartbeat accelerated. She turned. Nothing. Only endless trees swaying beneath silver clouds. She continued walking. Again. Another step behind her. Closer. Faster. This time instinct moved before thought. Evelyn spun around. A massive black creature burst from the undergrowth. Its glowing amber eyes fixed upon her. Its claws tore into the earth as it charged. Her body froze. Run. Every instinct screamed the same command. Yet terror rooted her feet to the ground. The creature lunged. A sharp whistle sliced through the forest. Something flashed between them. Steel. The beast twisted violently in midair before crashing several yards away. It growled once, then disappeared into the trees as quickly as it had arrived. Silence returned. Evelyn struggled to breathe. A tall young man lowered the elegant sword in his hand. He couldn't have been much older than 28. Dark hair brushed the collar of his charcoal coat. Rain-colored eyes reflected the afternoon light with an unusual silver shimmer. His posture was calm. Too calm. Like someone who had faced danger so many times it had become ordinary. Are you hurt? His voice carried quiet confidence rather than panic. Evelyn stared. You scared it away. A faint smile touched his lips. I was fortunate enough to arrive before it reached you. She looked toward the trees. What was that thing? The stranger hesitated. A large wolf. No. She shook her head. It wasn't a wolf. For one brief second, something unreadable crossed his expression. Then it disappeared behind another gentle smile. Perhaps fear made it appear larger than it truly was. He sheathed the sword with practiced ease. My name is Adrian. Evelyn. He repeated her name softly, almost thoughtfully. Evelyn. Hearing it spoken by him felt strangely familiar, as though he had known it long before she introduced herself. You shouldn't walk alone in these woods, Adrian said. There are dangerous creatures nearby. I've lived here my entire life. Then today was the first day your luck failed. She almost laughed. Instead, she noticed his hands. Not soft. Not noble. Calloused. Scarred. The hands of someone trained to fight. You don't seem much like a tourist either. I travel often. What do you do? His silver eyes drifted briefly toward the mountains beyond the forest. I have responsibilities waiting for me. The answer revealed nothing, yet somehow sounded truthful. A cool breeze swept between the trees. Without warning, Adrian's attention shifted toward the western ridge. His relaxed posture vanished. Every muscle in his body became alert. He was listening, not with ordinary ears, same silver crest. Their leader slowly raised a gloved hand, then pointed directly toward Evelyn. Find the awakened girl, he ordered quietly, and do not let the prince reach her first. The oldest kingdoms are never marked on human maps. They survive because ordinary eyes are taught not to see them. Evelyn followed Adrian through the forest long after the last rays of sunlight disappeared beneath the mountains. She should have questioned him. She should have demanded answers or insisted on returning home. Instead, every instinct that had awakened inside her whispered the same impossible truth. You are safer with him. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Only the sound of leaves rustling beneath their boots disturbed the silence. At last Evelyn broke it. You knew that creature wasn't an ordinary wolf. Adrian continued walking. Yes. And you still won't tell me what it was? His silver eyes remained fixed on the narrow trail ahead. Some truths become dangerous the moment they're spoken. She frowned. You keep saying things like that. I know. You also fight with a sword like you've done it your entire life. I have. You hear things before they happen. A faint smile appeared. Sometimes. And somehow, she continued, you aren't surprised that I suddenly have impossible hearing and impossible sight. This time Adrian stopped walking. For a long moment, He simply studied her face. Moonlight filtered through the branches above, painting silver patterns across his features. "I've been waiting for someone like you." The words settled heavily between them. Before Evelyn could ask what he meant, the trees ahead slowly opened into a vast clearing. She forgot how to breathe. An enormous valley stretched beneath the moon. Stone bridges crossed crystal rivers that reflected silver light like flowing glass. Ancient towers rose from cliffs covered in ivy. Hundreds of warm lights glowed from windows carved directly into the mountainside. It was beautiful, too beautiful, as though someone had hidden an entire kingdom inside the forest. This, her voice barely escaped, can't be real. It has always been real. Adrian stepped beside her. People simply stopped believing. As they descended toward the valley, Evelyn noticed something even stranger. Everyone they passed looked different. Some possessed unusually bright eyes. Others carried scents that reminded her of rain, cedar, smoke, or snow. Without realizing it, she could sense strength surrounding them like invisible waves. Children laughed as they chased one another through narrow streets. Merchants greeted travelers with respectful bows. Warriors wearing dark armor stood silently along the city walls. No one appeared frightened. No one questioned Adrian's arrival. Instead, they lowered their heads. "Your Highness." The greeting came again and again. Every guard, every merchant, every elder. "Your Highness." Evelyn glanced toward him. "I thought you said you traveled often." "I do. You forgot to mention you're a prince." "I wasn't trying to hide it." She raised an eyebrow. "You absolutely were." For the first time since meeting him, Adrian laughed. The sound was quiet, warm, unexpectedly human. "It rarely changes how people treat me. It certainly changes how I see you." His smile faded ever so slightly. "I was hoping it wouldn't." Before she could respond, an elderly woman approached carrying a basket of herbs. Her white hair shimmered beneath the lantern light. Instead of greeting Adrian first, she looked directly at Evelyn. The old woman's gentle expression slowly disappeared. Her eyes widened. "No," she whispered. "It cannot be." Without asking permission, the woman reached toward Evelyn's wrist, the same place where the mysterious silver mark had briefly appeared after her awakening. The old fingers trembled the instant they touched her skin. Tears filled the woman's eyes. "The moon remembers," she breathed. The bloodline truly survived. Several nearby townspeople turned immediately. Whispers spread through the square. "The bloodline. Is it really her? I thought they all died centuries ago." Adrian stepped forward before anyone could move closer. "Enough." His calm voice carried surprising authority. The whispers stopped instantly. The old woman lowered her head. "My apologies, Your Highness." Adrian gently guided Evelyn away from the growing crowd. Only after they entered a quieter stone courtyard did she finally stop walking. "What bloodline?" Silence. "Adrian." He looked toward the stars instead of meeting her eyes. "I promised someone I would let you discover the truth gradually. My entire life just changed overnight. I know. People here looked at me like they recognized me. They recognized something older than you." Frustration tightened inside her chest. "You keep speaking in riddles. And one day," Adrian answered softly, "you'll understand why." A deep horn echoed across the valley. Once, twice, 3 times. Every conversation stopped. Every lantern seemed suddenly dimmer. Warriors rushed toward the eastern gate. The peaceful city transformed within seconds. A captain shouted from the watchtower. "Unknown riders approaching." Another voice answered. "They're carrying the crimson crest." Adrian's expression hardened instantly. Not fear. Recognition. "They found us sooner than expected." He turned toward Evelyn, his silver eyes sharper than she had ever seen them. "No matter what happens next." His voice dropped almost to a whisper. "Do not let anyone separate us." Beyond the towering gates, dozens of armored riders emerged from the darkness. At their front rode a man whose black cloak bore the same silver insignia Evelyn had seen on the hunters in the forest. Only now, beneath the moonlight, she noticed something else. Every rider carried chains instead of swords. Fear spreads faster than fire because it only needs one spark to consume an entire kingdom. The eastern gates groaned open just enough for the riders to enter the valley. No one moved. No one spoke. Every citizen stood frozen beneath the moonlight while the horses advanced at a measured pace. their iron shoes striking the ancient stone like the slow ticking of a clock counting down to disaster. Evelyn instinctively stepped closer to Adrian. She wasn't even aware she had done it. The captain leading the riders finally removed his hood. His face was stern, weathered by countless battles, with cold gray eyes that searched the crowd until they settled on her. There she is. His voice echoed across the silent square. The Awakened. Murmurs rippled through the gathering. Several villagers lowered their heads. Others quietly backed away from Evelyn, as though simply standing beside her had become dangerous. Adrian remained perfectly still. What brings the Crimson Order into my territory without invitation? The captain inclined his head respectfully. Your Highness. His tone carried courtesy. His eyes did not. We have come for the girl. No. The single word was calm. Absolute. The council has issued a lawful decree. The council, Adrian replied evenly, does not rule here. The captain reached inside his cloak and produced a sealed parchment bearing crimson wax. By order of the High Council of Clans, every newly awakened bloodline must be taken into protective custody until its identity is confirmed. Protective custody. The word sounded harmless. Yet every person in the square reacted as though hearing a death sentence. Evelyn noticed an elderly woman quietly begin to cry. What happens? Evelyn asked, her voice barely above a whisper. If I refuse? The captain looked directly into her eyes. Then we escort you by force. A sharp wind swept through the valley. For the first time since arriving, Evelyn sensed something impossible. The riders carried almost no scent. Not because they were human, because they had deliberately concealed it. Whatever they truly were, they were hiding it. Adrian took one slow step forward. You will return to the council. They expected that answer. The captain nodded once. He raised two fingers. Instantly, every rider reached for the chains hanging beside their saddles. Not weapons. Chains. Forged from dark silver that shimmered beneath the moon. Evelyn stared at them. A strange pressure built inside her chest. The moment those chains appeared, every instinct within her screamed. Danger. Run. Do not let them touch you. The captain noticed the fear crossing her face. You feel it, don't you? He almost sounded sympathetic. Your blood remembers what silver does. Silver. The word struck her like ice. Before she could react, one of the younger riders suddenly spurred his horse forward. Perhaps he was impatient. Perhaps he underestimated the prince. No one ever learned which. The chain flew through the air toward Evelyn. She never saw Adrian move. One moment he stood beside her. The next he was several yards ahead. Steel flashed once. The silver chain shattered into dozens of glowing fragments before it could reach her. Silence. Even the wind seemed to stop. The young rider stared at the broken links scattered across the stone. Impossible. Adrian slowly lowered his sword. Its polished blade reflected the moon with an almost ethereal glow. I warned you. His voice never rose. I will not repeat myself. The captain sighed softly. I was hoping we could avoid this. He lifted his hand. Dozens of warriors surrounded the square in perfect formation. Evelyn's pulse raced. There were too many. Far too many. She turned toward Adrian. They'll kill us. No. His answer came without hesitation. They came expecting to arrest one frightened girl. He glanced at the circle of armored soldiers. They did not come prepared for a battle. The captain frowned. What battle? Adrian's silver eyes lifted toward the watchtowers overlooking the valley. A long, haunting howl suddenly echoed through the mountains. Then another, and another. The sound rolled across the kingdom like thunder. Every citizen looked upward. Shadows appeared along the rooftops. Massive wolves emerged from the darkness one after another. Black, gray, white, golden. Hundreds of glowing eyes opened beneath the moon. The riders instinctively tightened their formation. Even the captain's expression shifted. Not fear. Concern. The wolves did not growl. They simply watched. Waiting. Listening. Awaiting a single command. Evelyn's breathing caught. The entire kingdom had transformed before her eyes. This had never been an ordinary city. It had been a kingdom of wolves all along. One enormous silver wolf stepped onto the highest stone wall overlooking the square. Its presence alone silenced every living creature. Evelyn's heart skipped. She recognized those eyes. The same ancient silver gaze that had watched her awakening from the rooftop on the night everything changed. The wolf looked directly at Adrian. For one long heartbeat. Neither of them moved. Then, incredibly, the enormous beast lowered its head in silent respect. Evelyn stared in disbelief. Why? Why would the most powerful creature she had ever seen bow to a prince? The heart often recognizes the truth long before the eyes are allowed to see it. The silver wolf held its head lowered for only a moment. Then, without a sound, it disappeared into the darkness beyond the wall. One by one, the other wolves followed. Within seconds, the rooftops were empty again. Only the uneasy silence remained. The captain of the Crimson Order slowly lowered his hand. He had seen enough. "This is not over, Your Highness." "It never was," Adrian answered calmly. The captain's cold gaze shifted toward Evelyn. "We will return for you." He turned his horse without another word. The riders followed, their chains clinking softly beneath the moonlight until the last echo disappeared beyond the eastern gate. No one celebrated. The kingdom simply breathed again. Evelyn remained frozen where she stood. Her thoughts refused to settle. Why had every wolf answered an invisible command? Why had the enormous silver wolf bowed to Adrian? And why did everyone around them behave as though none of it required an explanation? Adrian sheathed his sword. "We should leave." She didn't move. "Who are you?" He met her eyes. "I already told you." "No." Her voice was steadier now. "You told me your name." She stepped closer. "You never told me who you are." For the first time since they met, Adrian had no immediate answer. A faint sadness crossed his face before he turned toward the narrow streets leading away from the square. "There are things I wish I could tell you. But timing matters." Evelyn laughed quietly. It wasn't amusement. It was frustration. "Everyone here knows something except me." "I know. And somehow I'm the center of it." "You are." His honesty caught her off guard. He wasn't denying it anymore. He simply refused to explain. The two of them walked through the quiet streets until they reached a stone balcony overlooking the valley. Lanterns shimmered below like scattered stars. The mountains surrounded the hidden kingdom in silent protection. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The cool night breeze carried the scent of cedar, rain, and distant wildflowers. Strangely, Evelyn realized she had begun recognizing Adrian's scent as well. Fresh pine, cold mountain air, a trace of silver rain. It had become comforting, dangerously comforting. "You seem calmer." Adrian leaned lightly against the stone railing. "I am, even after everything tonight." He smiled faintly. "I've lived with danger for a long time." She studied his face beneath the moonlight. Without the tension of battle, he appeared younger, gentler. Nothing about him resembled the terrifying rulers described in old legends. "You risked your life for someone you barely know." His silver eyes drifted toward the stars. "I couldn't do otherwise." "Why?" Another silence. Finally he answered. "Because some people are worth protecting the moment you meet them." Her heartbeat stumbled. The words were simple, yet they settled somewhere deep inside her chest. She quickly looked away before he could notice. "I'm not special." "I disagree. You don't even know me." "I know enough." She laughed softly. "You really enjoy speaking in mysteries. It keeps life interesting." This time she genuinely smiled. It surprised both of them. For the first time since her awakening, the fear inside her eased. Not because the danger had disappeared, because Adrian was standing beside her. The realization frightened her more than the wolves had. How could she trust someone she'd known for less than a day? Yet every instinct she possessed insisted she already did. A bell rang somewhere across the valley. Midnight. Adrian straightened. "You should rest." "What about you?" "I have a meeting." "At this hour?" "The kingdom rarely sleeps." He began walking toward the palace rising above the city. Halfway across the courtyard he stopped. Without turning around, he spoke quietly. "Evelyn." "Yes." "If anyone asks you about your family." He hesitated. "Tell them only what you remember." She frowned. "What does that mean?" He looked back over his shoulder. "The past isn't always what we've been taught." Then he disappeared through the palace gates. Evelyn remained alone beneath the moon. High above, a single window on the tallest tower slowly illuminated. Curiosity overcame caution. She climbed a nearby staircase leading toward an old terrace overlooking the palace. From there she could see directly into the brightly lit council chamber. Several elderly leaders stood around a massive stone table. Every one of them wore ceremonial robes. As Adrian entered the room, the conversation stopped instantly. Then, to Evelyn's complete astonishment, every elder in the chamber rose to their feet. One after another, they bowed. Not politely, Not respectfully. Completely. As though kneeling before the highest authority in the kingdom. An ancient gray-haired elder lowered his head and spoke words Evelyn could not hear. Adrian answered with a slight nod. The elders remained bowed until he took his place at the head of the table. Evelyn's breath caught. Princes did not receive that kind of obedience. Only kings did. Some truths are so powerful that an entire kingdom will spend centuries protecting them, until the wrong pair of eyes finally sees them. Evelyn remained hidden behind the ancient stone column, scarcely daring to breathe. Inside the council chamber, every elder still stood with their heads lowered. No one questioned Adrian. No one interrupted him. The prince she had met in the forest now carried an authority that silenced even the oldest leaders in the kingdom. One gray-haired elder finally spoke. The Crimson Order will return with greater numbers. They won't attack openly, Adrian replied. They know the consequences. Another council member unfolded an old parchment across the stone table. The prophecy has begun. Evelyn leaned forward instinctively. Prophecy. The word sent an unfamiliar chill through her body. A woman's voice broke the silence. If the girl truly carries the Moon Bloodline, hiding her will only delay the inevitable. We're not hiding her, Adrian answered. We're giving her time. Time to remember? No. His expression darkened. Time to choose. The room fell silent once again. Evelyn pressed her hand against the cold wall. Choose what? She had done nothing except survive. Why did everyone speak as though her future could change the fate of an entire kingdom? Without warning, Adrian turned toward the window, straight toward where she was hiding. For one terrifying second, their eyes met through the narrow opening. He knew. He had known she was there all along. Yet instead of exposing her, he calmly continued the meeting. The council is dismissed. The elders bowed once more before quietly leaving the chamber. Within minutes, only Adrian remained. He stood alone beside the enormous window overlooking the sleeping valley. You're a terrible spy. His voice carried gentle amusement. Evelyn slowly stepped inside, embarrassed. You knew? I heard your heartbeat the moment you climbed the stairs. She sighed. I keep forgetting that nothing is normal anymore. Neither of us has lived a normal life. She crossed the room until they stood facing each other. No more riddles. He listened. I saw what happened. You weren't supposed to. I watched every elder bow to you. Silence. You aren't just a prince. Another silence. Longer this time. Finally, Adrian spoke. There are many titles people give me. But titles rarely tell the whole truth. She almost laughed. Do you ever answer a question directly? When I can. When will that be? When telling you everything won't place you in greater danger. She wanted to argue. Instead, she noticed exhaustion hidden beneath his calm expression. Dark circles rested beneath his silver eyes. His shoulders carried a weight far heavier than any crown. You haven't slept. Not much. Because of me? His smile was faint. Partly. Guilt settled inside her chest. I never asked anyone to protect me. I know. You could simply let the Crimson Order take me. The warmth disappeared from his face. No. The answer came instantly. Firm. Certain. They are not what they claim to be. You said they wanted to protect awakened wolves. They protect power. The distinction lingered between them. Evelyn walked toward the large window. Moonlight poured across the valley below. The hidden kingdom looked peaceful again. Children's laughter drifted faintly through the streets despite everything that had happened. Back home, she whispered. My biggest worry was paying rent. Adrian quietly joined her beside the window. And now people I've never met are willing to fight because I exist. She lowered her eyes. I'm afraid. He didn't offer empty reassurance. Instead, he answered honestly. So am I. She looked at him in surprise. You? I fear making the wrong choices. You don't seem afraid. I've simply learned not to let fear make my decisions. For a long moment, they stood together in comfortable silence. Neither noticed how close they had become. Only inches separated them now. Evelyn could hear his heartbeat. Steady, strong, strangely calming. Her own heart answered with an uneven rhythm she couldn't explain. She quickly stepped back. I should probably get some rest. You should. He walked her toward the chamber door. Just before she left, his voice stopped her once more. Evelyn. She turned. If anything unusual happens tonight. He hesitated. Come find me immediately. She nodded. I will. Hours later, deep into the night, Evelyn woke suddenly. Not because of a sound, Because of a feeling. Something inside her chest had begun glowing with invisible warmth. She looked down. Beneath the sleeve of her nightdress, the silver mark on her wrist slowly reappeared, brighter than before. It pulsed once, twice. Then a second light answered somewhere far away. Across the valley, at the highest tower of the palace. Evelyn rushed to the window. On the distant balcony stood Adrian. He looked directly toward her as though he had awakened at the exact same moment. The silver mark on his own wrist glowed beneath the moonlight. For one impossible heartbeat. Both marks shone in perfect unison. The greatest betrayals are not born from hatred. They are born from half-truths spoken at the exact moment a wounded heart is searching for answers. Evelyn could not take her eyes off the silver mark glowing faintly on her wrist. It had faded with the sunrise, yet the warmth remained beneath her skin like an invisible heartbeat. She had felt Adrian's mark answer hers across the valley. That moment had been real. She knew it. But why? Every question seemed to lead only to another mystery. Unable to quiet her thoughts, she wandered into the palace gardens just after dawn. Mist drifted lazily above the marble paths, while white roses bloomed beneath ancient oak trees. For a brief moment, the kingdom looked untouched by danger. You shouldn't be alone. The unfamiliar voice came from behind her. Evelyn turned. A handsome young man dressed in elegant black robes approached with measured confidence. His blonde hair was neatly tied back, and a silver wolf crest rested against his chest. Unlike Adrian, his smile never reached his eyes. My name is Lucian. He bowed politely. I serve the council. Evelyn. I know. His answer came too quickly. He gestured toward a quiet stone bench beside the fountain. May I? Something about him unsettled her. Yet refusing would only invite suspicion. She nodded. For several moments they sat in silence while birds sang overhead. Finally Lucian spoke. You trust Prince Adrian. It wasn't a question. He saved my life. He does that. You sound disappointed. Lucian smiled faintly. I sound experienced. She frowned. What do you mean? He studied the water flowing through the fountain. Have you ever wondered why he happened to appear exactly when you awakened? The question caught her off guard. No one finds an awakened wolf by accident. He said he was traveling. Lucian's expression softened with almost convincing sympathy. Did he? Evelyn remembered every conversation they had shared. Every answer. Every mystery. Every carefully avoided truth. He never actually lied. Lucian continued quietly. He simply never told you the entire story. A cold feeling spread through her chest. You know something. I know many things. He reached into his coat and carefully removed an old leather journal. Its pages were worn with age. This belonged to one of the previous royal historians. He opened to a faded illustration. A young woman stood beside a crowned alpha surrounded by kneeling warriors. Beneath the drawing were several lines written in elegant script. Lucian gently turned the book toward Evelyn. Every generation, he said softly, an awakened bloodline appears. Her heartbeat quickened. And every generation. His voice lowered. The throne claims her. She looked up sharply. What does that mean? The Alpha King cannot fully secure his rule without the Moon Bloodline. I don't understand. You don't have to. His eyes met hers. You only need to ask yourself one question. He paused. If Adrian knew exactly who you were. Another pause. Did he rescue you because he cared? Or because he needed you? The words struck harder than she expected. Images flashed through her mind. The forest, his perfect timing, the hidden kingdom, the council, the glowing marks, every elder bowing before him. He had known far more than she had from the very beginning. Why? Lucian quietly closed the journal. I shouldn't have said any of this. Wait. She grabbed his sleeve. Tell me the truth. I already have. He gently freed his arm. Just be careful. He walked away without looking back, leaving Evelyn alone with thoughts she desperately wished she had never heard. Hours later, Adrian finally found her standing beside the same fountain. She didn't smile when she saw him. He noticed immediately. What happened? She looked directly into his silver eyes. When were you planning to tell me? He frowned. Tell you what? That you already knew exactly who I was. Silence. His expression changed almost imperceptibly. Not guilt. Regret. You deserve an explanation. So it's true. I never intended to deceive you. But you did. The words came out sharper than she intended. You watched me stumble through all of this while everyone else already knew. I was trying to protect you. From the truth. From what the truth would do to you. She laughed bitterly. You don't get to decide that. Evelyn. No. She stepped backward. I trusted you. You still can. Can I? She searched his face. For the first time since meeting him, she could no longer separate sincerity from secrecy. Every memory suddenly carried another possible meaning. Every kindness. Every rescue. Every smile. Were they genuine? Or had they all been part of a plan that began long before she ever opened her eyes beneath the blood moon? Before Adrian could speak again, the palace bells erupted violently across the valley. Once. Twice. Then without pause. The sound carried only one meaning. An emergency. A blood-soaked messenger burst through the palace gates, collapsing onto the marble steps. The Crimson Order. He gasped between breaths. They've crossed the northern border. His terrified eyes found Adrian. And they're marching with someone who claims to be the rightful Alpha King. A lie can command an army for a day, but only truth can command a soul forever. The palace erupted into controlled chaos. Warriors rushed across the courtyards. Tower bells continued to ring through the hidden valley while every gate was sealed. The wounded messenger collapsed completely, his armor stained with blood and ash. The northern villages. He whispered weakly. They've fallen. Silence spread across the council chamber. No one spoke. No one dared. Evelyn stood near the doorway, watching Adrian step toward the injured soldier. He knelt without hesitation. Not as a prince. Not as a ruler. Simply as a man trying to save another life. Bring the healers. His voice remained calm despite the panic surrounding them. They're already on their way, an elder replied. The messenger grabbed Adrian's wrist before anyone could move him. He wears. The soldier struggled for breath. Your face. Every eye in the room turned toward Adrian, the man leading them. The messenger coughed violently. Calls himself the Alpha King. A heavy silence followed. No surprise appeared on Adrian's face. Only resignation. As though this was the moment he had known would eventually arrive. Evelyn watched him carefully. Lucien's words echoed inside her mind. Did he rescue you because he cared, or because he needed you? She wanted to silence those doubts. Instead, they grew louder. One of the elders stepped forward. Your Majesty, Adrian raised a hand. The elder immediately fell silent. Your Majesty. The title struck Evelyn harder than anything she had heard before. Not Your Highness. Not Prince. Your Majesty. The room had spoken before anyone could hide the truth. Adrian slowly turned toward her. There was no more distance. Left to hide behind. I owe you the truth. She met his eyes. Yes. He dismissed every council member with a single glance. Within moments, the enormous chamber stood empty except for the two of them. Outside, the kingdom prepared for war. Inside, another battle was about to begin. I never wanted you to learn this way, Adrian said quietly. You had many chances. I know. You chose silence every time. His shoulders lowered slightly. Because once you knew who I truly was. He looked directly into her eyes. Your life could never return to what it had been. It already can't. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Finally, Adrian walked toward the ancient throne standing at the end of the chamber. It had remained empty since Evelyn first entered the kingdom. Now he climbed the marble steps. Slowly, without ceremony, without pride, he stopped before the throne, then turned to face her. I am Adrian Ashford. His voice echoed softly through the hall. Prince by birth. He paused, and the silver mark on his wrist suddenly blazed with brilliant light. Ancient symbols ignited across the floor beneath the throne. The air itself seemed to tremble. The Alpha King. The words settled over the chamber like destiny finally spoken aloud. Evelyn felt the warmth beneath her own wrist answer immediately. Her silver mark burst into life. Moonlight poured through the stained glass windows, surrounding both of them in pale silver radiance. The throne behind Adrian shimmered as though recognizing its rightful ruler. For a long moment, Evelyn simply stared. She had known. Part of her had always known. Yet hearing the truth spoken aloud changed everything. You lied. No. His answer was gentle. I hid the truth. What's the difference? The intention. She laughed softly, but tears filled her eyes. It feels exactly the same. Pain crossed Adrian's face. I know. You let me believe you were only a prince. Because I wanted you to know me before the crown. She remembered every conversation, every smile, every quiet walk beneath the moon. None of those moments had felt false. Yet now they were all wrapped inside a truth too large to ignore. Was any of it real? His answer came before she finished asking. Every moment. Even meeting me in the forest? I was searching for you. Her heart tightened. So Lucien was right. I don't know what Lucien told you. He said the throne needed me. Adrian closed his eyes briefly. When the prophecy named the last Moon Bloodline, he looked at her again. I searched because I believed protecting you was my responsibility. And after you found me, his voice softened almost to a whisper. After I found you. Another pause. Nothing happened the way I expected. She waited. I was supposed to see a prophecy. Instead, I saw Evelyn. The simplicity of those words broke something inside her. Not because they erased the lies. Because they sounded undeniably true. Before either of them could speak again, an earth-shaking roar echoed beyond the palace walls. The windows rattled violently. A soldier burst into the chamber without knocking. Your Majesty. He dropped to one knee. The northern gate has fallen. Another roar thundered across the valley. This one was impossibly deep. Wild. Ancient. Every wolf in the kingdom answered with frightened howls. The soldier looked up, his face completely drained of color. The false Alpha King. His voice trembled. Just transformed. Evelyn rushed to the shattered window. Far beyond the city walls, a colossal black wolf emerged from the smoke. It towered above every warrior on the battlefield. Its crimson eyes burned like living fire. Then, as if sensing her presence, the monster slowly lifted its head and smiled. True strength is not measured by the crown upon your head, but by the hand you refuse to let go when the world is falling apart. The colossal black wolf stepped through the smoke like a living nightmare. Every footstep cracked the stone beneath its massive claws. Its crimson eyes burned with hatred older than memory itself. The warriors lining the city walls instinctively retreated. Even the bravest among them had never witnessed such overwhelming power. Only Adrian remained where he stood. His silver eyes never left the creature beyond the shattered gate. So, the black wolf's deep voice rolled across the valley. The rightful king still hides behind human skin. The beast's body shimmered. Bones twisted. Dark fur dissolved into swirling shadows. Within seconds, a tall man dressed in black armor stood where the monster had been. His face looked hauntingly familiar. Not identical, but close enough to Adrian that anyone seeing them together would mistake them for brothers. Evelyn understood the messenger's warning. Someone had stolen the image of a king. I am Cashin. The stranger spread his arms toward the frightened kingdom. The first Alpha. The forgotten king. The throne was mine long before yours. A murmur spread through the defenders. Ancient legends. Impossible legends. Adrian slowly descended the palace steps until he stood between Cashin and the city. You surrendered your crown when you chose power over your people. Cashin smiled coldly. I chose survival. You chose fear. Their words carried no anger. Only centuries of unfinished history. Cashin's crimson eyes shifted toward Evelyn. There she is. His smile widened. The Moon Bloodline. Evelyn felt the silver mark on her wrist burn painfully. Every instinct inside her screamed, run, but she no longer moved. Instead, she stepped forward. One step, then another. Adrian turned immediately. Evelyn, it's all right. No. His voice sharpened for the first time. It isn't. Cashin laughed. Even now, he looked amused. You still try to protect her from choices she deserves to make. Evelyn stopped beside Adrian. She looked first at Cashin, then at Adrian. Finally she spoke. I've spent my entire life letting other people tell me who I am. Her voice trembled, but not anymore. She reached for Adrian's hand. For one brief second he hesitated. Not because he didn't want to hold it. Because he wanted the decision to belong entirely to her. She gently intertwined her fingers with his. The silver marks on both of their wrists burst into brilliant light. Moonlight flooded the valley. The entire kingdom fell silent. An enormous circle of glowing silver symbols appeared beneath their feet. The air filled with thousands of shimmering lights drifting downward like falling stars. Every wolf in the valley instinctively bowed. Not to a throne, not to a crown, to the bond they were witnessing. Cashin's smile slowly disappeared. No. His voice became almost a growl. That cannot be. The silver light expanded until it surrounded the entire battlefield. Evelyn felt warmth instead of pain, strength instead of fear. She understood now. The Moon Bloodline had never existed to serve a king. It existed to recognize one worthy of standing beside. She looked into Adrian's eyes. "I choose." The words were simple, yet they echoed like an ancient vow. "I choose you." Not because of destiny, not because of prophecy, because beneath every title, every secret, every burden, he had remained the man who stepped between her and danger without asking for anything in return. The silver light erupted. Cashin staggered backward. The darkness surrounding him shattered like glass beneath the rising moon. His stolen power dissolved into countless fragments that vanished into the night. For the first time in centuries, the curse binding the kingdom was broken. Morning sunlight slowly appeared beyond the mountains. The battle had ended before the first rays touched the valley. Weeks later, the hidden kingdom gathered beneath the great moon tree. No armies stood waiting. No chains. No fear. Only families, children, and wolves running freely through fields of silver flowers. Before the ancient throne, Adrian stood dressed not in armor, but in simple royal white. He did not sit. Instead, before every elder, every warrior, and every citizen, the Alpha King lowered himself onto one knee. He looked up at Evelyn with the same quiet warmth she had seen the day they first met in the forest. "Will you stand beside me?" He did not ask for obedience. He did not ask for destiny. Only companionship. Tears shimmered in Evelyn's eyes as she smiled. Always. She helped him rise instead of allowing him to remain kneeling. Together, they walked toward the throne. Neither of them claimed it alone. They stood side by side as equals beneath the morning sun. High above the kingdom, two magnificent white wolves appeared upon the highest cliff. One larger, one smaller. They stood shoulder to shoulder, watching over the valley below. Not as ruler and subject, not as prophecy and sacrifice, but as two souls who had found each other after walking through fear, secrets, and destiny. And beneath the endless sky, the kingdom finally understood that the greatest legend had never been about an Alpha King. It had always been about the woman who chose love freely, and, by doing so, taught a king what true strength really meant.